Hallå och välkomna tillbaka till Senjou och Maou. Nu har det gått typ 1,5 timme sedan sist här och vi ska fortsätta nu. Jag har suttit och redigerat klart första avsnittet av min Taskman-serie på RuneScape 3. Jag har 22 avsnitt av den serien, jag har inte lagt ut ett enda, men nu har jag redigerat klart första avsnittet. Och det är bara första avsnittet som behöver redigeras så där mycket. Så det kommer gå mycket snabbare nu. Faktum är att de andra avsnitten redan är renderade och klara. Så jag tänkte lägga ut ett avsnitt av det varje dag i början av februari. Hade jag tänkt här. Jag vet inte vad det är idag, 29 januari. Okej, men vi fortsätter med det här i alla fall. I förra avsnittet, jag ska säga det, att den här version novelen börjar bli lite svårläst. För att jag börjar på riktigt tycka extremt synd om Tsubaki. Man börjar nästan må dåligt här. Jävla hemskt alltså. Vår huvudkaraktär är helt sinnessjuk. Men ja, vad säger man? Good stories from bad lives. Och ja, det är en intressant story i alla fall. Det kan jag inte ta ifrån dem. Men, vi fortsätter. Tsubaki sat on the floor with knees bent, sighing out her feelings of tension and despair. Her brother had been kidnapped for 2 days now, but to Tsubaki it had already felt like an eternity. She's taken time off of school by pretending to be sick. Even though lying hurts like a knife in her heart, she can't tell the school the truth. Her father spoke, a haggard expression adorning his features. Her mother isn't feeling well. When she heard of the kidnapping 2 nights ago, she fainted on the spot. 3 of her siblings are sleeping in another room. When they learned of Hiroaki's absence, they screamed and cried. Okej, det här är lite missledande för nu får de det att låta som att det är hennes mammas syskon, men det är det alltså inte. They screamed and cried. Even though they've been told that Hiroaki is at the grandmother's house, the kids are sharp. They've probably noticed the gravity of the situation for the heavy atmosphere. This family used to be cheerful, always full of smiles. The mother, physically weak but good at cooking. The children, always arguing about this or that. The father, stubborn on the outside but fond of doting on his daughter. Why did this have to happen? The sighing won't stop. This misfortune is just cruel. Why did the kidnapper pick us? And why Hiroaki? What could be happening to him right now as I sit here? If I could, I would take his place. Even so, Tsubaki has already decided not to show weakness before either her family or the culprit. Right now, the ones in the most pain are her father, who had to give up his prized land, and her mother, who had a child that she cared for 9 months taken away. The sound of a cell phone mingled with Haru's low voice as it echoed around the narrow family room. What is the culprit trying to achieve, calling Haru's phone? Tsubaki watched Haru. She brought the cell up to her ear in a calm fashion. Her expression was dignified. She was no longer the Usami Haru Tsubaki had met at school, her timid back hunched over like a willow branch.
Maou.
Haru suddenly spoke. What does Maou mean? Not even an iota of humor accompanied Haru's absurd question. Tsubaki, on the other hand, was completely confused. What are they talking about? Tsubaki's mind is immersed in chaos. This interaction makes it sound like Haru and the kidnapper know each other. Having her name suddenly called almost made Tsubaki jump out of her skin. Haru handed over this phone after finishing this sentence. Tsubaki gulped. She took the phone, still on the line. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably. She has to speak with the kidnapper once again. Closing her eyes, she pulled the phone up to her ear. The voice was different. This wasn't a robotic voice like before, but the unadulterated voice of a man. It was a strange feeling. The kidnapper addressing her by her first name.
身代金は用意しました。次は何をすればいいんですか？
いいぞ。私の言うことをきちんと守っていれば、弟は必ず返す。
Maou then gave her his next instructions.
その携帯電話の充電が切れないよう注意しろ。電気屋かコンビニエンスストアなどで即席の充電器を用意しろ。ちゃんと型が合うものを購入する。
Men då har de ingen laddare till telefonen. Tsubaki quickly opened the diary and wrote down the directions.
セントラル街に大和屋という大きなデパートがあるのは知っているか？
Och klockan är just nu 6 på kvällen. Okej, jag antar att det kanske är öppet. Facing a sudden question, Tsubaki sank into confusion.
わかると思います。
デパートの3階にカバンを売っている店がある。
はい。
明日の午前中、そこで一番安い
Tomorrow morning.
1万円もあれば買えるはずだ。
ケース。
She wrote furiously, not having even a second to question the kidnapper.
無事に購入できたら、50枚の株券を封筒に詰め、ケースの中に入れて私に連絡をしろ。電話番号は今椿が手にしている携帯に入っている。
After writing everything down thoroughly, Tsubaki finally got a chance to take a breath. Tsubaki thought to herself, why does he want me to do all these roundabout things? I didn't call the police, and I'll give him the ransom just like he wants. So please, just return my brother. The thoughts in her heart slipped out.
お金払いますから。ちゃんと払いますから。ですから。
The kidnapper interrupted her.
弟はちゃんと返す。
はい。
ただ、私は取引に万全を期したいだけだ。明日になってお前がいきなり警察に連絡しないという保証があるのか？しないです。
She instinctively yelled a response.
どうして信じてくれないんですか？
逆に聞きたいのだな。どうして信じることができるんだ？
しない
ものはしないからです。
Laughter came from the other end of the line.
なあ、椿よ。
A voice, almost like a whisper, swirled around her ears.
お前は面白いな。お前が無条件で他人を信じるのは勝手だが、それを私にも押し付けないでもらおうか。
言っている意味がよくわかりません。
大したものだ。私はお前のような人間は好きだぞ。
Tsubaki was speechless. Not a single word would come out. The culprit spoke again to the befuddled Tsubaki.
父親にするか決めかねていたが、やはり受け渡しには椿を指名するとしよ
う。The exchange. That means the role of bringing out the ransom tomorrow has fallen onto Tsubaki's shoulders.
では明日、お前に会えるのを楽しみにしている。
Okay. Just when she was about to tell him to wait, she was greeted with the steady tone of a dropped call. Extreme fatigue attacked her. Haru looked at Tsubaki's face with probing eyes.
大丈夫か？平気だよ、おはるちゃん。犯人はなんて？
Tsubaki flipped through her diary and repeated everything to Haru. Haru silently listened to Tsubaki doddering explanation.
携帯の充電器はあるぞ。
Haru passed it over as she spoke.
この携帯電話はもともと犯人からもらったものなんだ。ずっと持ってたの？私にとって唯一の証拠品だからな。いつかかってきてもいいように充電は絶やさないようにしておいた。
Sorry. Tsubaki tilted her head and asked a question.
魔王？そう、魔王だ。魔王っていう人が犯人なの？ああ。
Haru nodded.
知り合いなの？
Haru hesitated for a moment at Tsubaki's question.
知り合いというわけではないが、椿は声に聞き覚えがなかったか？犯人の声だ。
Tsubaki reflected one more time. The kidnapper's baritone was full of allure, full of confidence.
いや、わかんないな。 どこかで聞いたことがないか。そう言われても。
She rarely hears the voices of men. The only impressionable one belongs to Asahi Kyosuke. When Kyosuke talks on the phone, he sometimes uses an oppressively cold tone. A tone which frightens her into a cold sweat. Det låter ju stabilt. Almost unable to stop herself from saying Kyosuke's name, Tsubaki started to panic. Jag vet inte, så återigen, det är det jag säger varenda gång. Jag tycker att det ska bli extremt intressant att se hur det här branchar out till liksom en supposedly love story med 4 olika personer. Vänta, va? 4 olika personer. Vem är den fjärde? Ja, det är Kanon. Vi har inte sett Kanon på ganska länge. Okej. Asai-kun can't be the kidnapper. A wave of embarrassment suddenly assailed her. If Kyosuke hadn't helped, her family might not even have the ransom right now. And he even talked to them about the land. Kyosuke might come off like a lazy playboy, but he's actually a gentle, reliable person. As that thought sprang to Tsubaki's mind, it was accompanied by an image of Kyosuke's face as he's passionately going off about classical music. A fire burned in her chest.
まあいい。ところで、明日は私も協力させてもらいたいんだが。
Tsubaki, trapped in a dream, was suddenly pulled back to reality.
犯人を捕まえる。
Haru stated her resolution. Tsubaki's father, who had been silent up until now, took that as a cue to speak. The man stood up with a great effort.
それはお金を渡さないっていうことかい。
極力渡したくはありません。
Hearing this, Tsubaki became flustered.
ダメだよ。ちゃんと渡さないとヒロアキが。
The kidnapper promised. If they follow his orders, he'll release Hiraki. Just as Tsubaki was going to question Haru, her father held out a hand to stop her.
椿、ちょっと落ち着きなさい。
Haru lowered her head slightly.
驚かせてすまない、椿。私こそ取り乱して。
Haru gave Tsubaki a reassuring smile.
宇佐美さんと言ったね。
春でいいですよ、お父さん。
捕まえるって君がかい。
ええ。お金もヒロアキ君も帰ってくる。それが最高の形だと思っています。
確かに犯人さえ捕まえれば全てうまくいくよ。けれど僕らは警察すら頼らないことに決めたんだ。
犯人の言いなりになるということですね。
Grejen är att han kanske har någon slags liksom avlyssning på den där telefonen han har gett till henne. Det är inte helt omöjligt. Haru looked as she fought, as though she disapproved of the thought.
確かに犯人は大した人物です。幼児を誘拐し、紙を送りつけてくるという残虐性と、身代金を株券で要求するという奇想天外な発想の持ち主です。
What is Haru trying to say? Tsubaki wasn't able to concern herself with their criminal's personality. Är det verkligen en så originell idé dock? Jag vet inte, kanske. In her mind, simply the act of kidnapping alone made him nothing but an object of fear.
そうだよ。そんな凶悪な犯罪者をどうやって捕まえるというんだい。
Tsubaki's father was right.
犯人がどれほど頭の回る人物だとしても、ただ一点、姿を現さなければならない瞬間があります。
Inte nödvändigtvis, han kanske skickar någon annan.
それは
身代金ダッシュの時です。正体不明の犯人ですが、用意した株券を椿から受け取る時には顔を見せざるを得ないはずです。
Indeed. The criminal has even said that he wants to meet Tsubaki. She may actually end up coming face to face with him. Tsubaki's father shook his head.
宇佐美さん、前に君が言った通り、身代金を渡せばヒロアキが帰ってくるという保証は。
私はむしろ身代金を渡したが最後、ヒロアキ君は戻らないとまで考えています。
Sorry?
なんで？約束が違うじゃない。
Tsubaki interrupted, and Haru stared at her.
犯人にとって人質とはリスクの塊だからだ。 解放した後、犯人の顔や声を覚えていて、監禁されていた場所を警察に話すかもしれない。
浅井君といい、宇佐美さんといい、椿の友達はただものじゃないな。
Her father smiled weakly. A ferocious battle is waging in his chest. If the police aren't called and the criminals' orders are followed, it would mean losing the land that he protected up until now. This is the first time that Tsubaki has seen her father in so much pain.
正直どうしていいのかわからないんだ。今すぐにでも受話器を掴んで警察を頼りたい気持ちもある。
お察しします。
椿は宇佐美さん。
Facing her father's inquiry, Tsubaki hesitated on her reply. A feeling similar to guilt began to sprout within her. Rather than her friend, Haru, she chose to follow the instructions of this cruel, faceless criminal. Haru averted her eyes.
私に人の家庭の事情に口を挟む権利なんてない。
Oh, sorry.
ずけずけと勝手なことばっかり言って本当にごめん。
Tsubaki felt pricks of pain probe her chest. The girl who called herself a hero was only proposing to the others what she felt was the best course of action. Tsubaki wanted to at least take her feelings into consideration. After much agonizing deliberation, Tsubaki finally spoke up.
お父さん、ごめん。やっぱり警察は怖いよ。だって私は犯人の声を直接聞いてきたもの。
He nodded deeply.
でも、はるちゃんの言うことも合っているように思う。犯人を捕まえたいとも思う。
椿。
だから、はるちゃんには自由にしてほしいな。
Tsubaki's smile was answered with Haru's.
ありがとう。
魔王をやっつけるのが勇者様でしょ。
Her father also gave a satisfied smile.
明日は大丈夫か、椿。お前の身も心配だ。できるなら代わってやりたいが。
いいよ、お父さん。ありがとう。
Tsubaki's father relied on her. She realized recently that as the eldest child, she's always been the family center.
よし、じゃあ子供たちを起こしておいで。ご飯にしよう。
自分も一緒させてもらえると食費が浮いて大変嬉しいのですが。
もちろんだよ。みんなで食べよう。
すいません、厚かましくて。
The night grew deeper. Even from within the dark wintry abyss that had been thrust upon this family. A single flower finally bloomed. Right. Chapter 2. Fast Chapter 2 hette ju något sånt här typ det var jag minns inte vad det hette, men det var liksom det var någonting med typ flera kidnappningar. A series of kidnappings eller något sånt där. The morning chill seemed a touch colder today. All right, I got a full day ahead of me today too. Finishing up the preparations for the day, I walked to the door, only to have the cell in my chest pocket suddenly ring. Hello? It was Tsubaki.
朝早くごめんね。
It's no problem. Has something happened?
今日身代金の受け渡しがあるの。
Oh, I pretended to be surprised. That's a lot of pressure. Can you do it by yourself?
やるしかないよ。
I sensed a steeled resolution in Tsubaki's voice. I'm sorry that I can't be with you at a time like this.
浅井君にはたくさんお世話になってるよ。
Well, I still have work to do. I'll come right over after I'm finished. Yeah, after I'm finished.
ありがとう。待ってるね。
I hung up and walked out the door. Men, okej. Väldigt förvirrad på vem han är nu. Finally. I couldn't contain my amusement. A smile tugged at my lips. Let's enjoy this little game, shall we? Jesus. 9 o'clock in the morning. Haru's mind was as clear as the winter sky.
よーし椿、一丁我々の友情パワーを犯人に見せつけてやろうじゃないか。
はるちゃん
Powers of friendship.
元気いいね。
お前こそちゃんと身代金持ったか？
Tsubaki was holding the certificates in an envelope, cradling it like a precious child. After waving to Tsubaki's parents, who had walked the pair to the door, the two of them left for Central Boulevard. Where did all these people come from? Even at noon on Central Boulevard, this monstrous crowd is out of the ordinary.
ねえ、はるちゃん。
なんだ？
私たちって一緒に行動していいのかな？
Tsubaki's stride was getting heavier by the second. Haru matched her footsteps, moving in tandem.
ダメだとは言われていない。
In fact, Haru was under the impression that Maou was practically inviting her to participate in this incident.
ただ、私は離れて行動した方がいいとも思う。
Maou had likely anticipated Haru's involvement. If so, then instead of delivering the ransom with Tsubaki, it would be better to try and hide and pounce on Maou at the opportune moment. For example, the best chance of nabbing Maou might come when his attention is focused on Tsubaki during the exchange.
どうするの？
Tsubaki asked. She must still be worried about going alone.
大丈夫だ。そばにいる。
そう？
ただし、少し距離を置いて、椿を遠目に見守るような形を取らせてもらう。
Tsubaki tilted her head dubiously.
じゃあ、これから私たちはお互いに連絡を取り合えないの？
そうなる。
そっか。
Haru put her hand on Tsubaki's shoulder.
窮地に陥っているようなら、颯爽と助けに行く。
That one sentence made Tsubaki relax, if only a little bit. A hint of crimson flashed across her face, and she nodded.
最後に、一つだけ聞いておく。
何でも言って。
私は極力犯人を捕まえようとする。だが、万が一取り逃がしてしまった場合、身代金だけは奪われないように動くつもりだ。
そうなの？
Tsubaki frowned again, apprehensive once more. Tsubaki must still want to follow the instructions of the kidnapper and give him the ransom.
いいか椿。たとえ犯人に逃げられても、身代金さえ手元にあれば、もう一度交渉のチャンスはつかめる。
Maou will try to contact the family again in an attempt to get the ransom. And after that, a second battle will ensue. This should be true, but a foreboding feeling wriggled about in Haru's gut. One can claim that Haru's speculations are appropriate, but they make the critical assumption that Mao's goal is to get the ransom. To the best of her knowledge, though, this crime wasn't committed by a person who needs money. Just how much is 50 million yen in shares to Maou? Still, Haru remains stubbornly convinced that Maou is just trying to provoke her. In Mao's eyes, it might be less of a challenge and more of a game. Whatever the case, let this game begin. Whatever the case, if Maou intends to defeat Haru, she would simply have to beat him to the punch. Of course, there's a chance that Maou might kill Hiroaki-kun out of retaliation when he realizes his defeat. Haru couldn't tear this unsettling thought from her mind.
はるちゃん、昨日も言ったけど、はるちゃんのいいようにして。
ありがとう。そう言ってくれると思っていた。
Tsubaki stuck out her tongue.
はるちゃんって不思議な人だね。
なんだ急に。
ドヨーンとしたり、キリッとしたり。一体どれが本当のはるちゃんなの？
そう。
To be looked into by another gave Haru a tingling feeling.
はるちゃんって転校多かったんじゃない？
まあ。
そっか。
Lite sus, men
大変だったね。
as kind as she was, Tsubaki must have realized that Haru probably didn't have many friends.
おい椿、私はよく気持ちが悪いと言われる。
Her words, seeming to come out of nowhere, shocked Tsubaki wide-eyed.
気持ちが悪かったら縁を切ってもらって構わないんだぞ。
What? Haru thought of the past. The past where she perpetually hid her loneliness behind a lone wolf attitude and a cynical facade. However, Tsubaki's response was firm.
悲しいこと言わないで。
Surprised, Haru looked at Tsubaki.
お友達だよ、はるちゃんは。
Just why would such a pure girl exist in real life? Tsubaki's gaze was firm, charismatic even. Haru decided in the back of her mind to do everything in her power for Tsubaki, no matter what happened. She couldn't understand the reason behind it, and Haru's confusion showed on her face.
最後に一つだけ聞きたい。
さっきも最後にって言ってなかったっけ？
これが本当に最後だ。そしてかなり重要なことだ。
うん。
Haru fixed her gaze on Tsubaki.
椿は浅井さんのことが好きなのか？
Tsubaki obviously hadn't expected that, as she blushed red.
どうなんだ？どうなんだと聞いているんだ。
好きだよ。もちろん。あんなに頼りになる人いないよ。ふーんって。
So her first impression was correct. Haru's emotions grew complicated. On the contrary, Tsubaki's mind seemed to have already cleared up.
何にしてもありがとう、はるちゃん。
Tsubaki said.
ひろあきが帰ってきたらいっぱいお話ししようね。
Haru nodded. This time it was Tsubaki's words that helped Haru relax. After all, she had just gained an excellent friend. It was already 11:10. 10 past 11, perhaps. One might say 10 past 11 is the same thing as 10, 11, 12, 10. Tsubaki glanced at the clock on Central Boulevard to double-check the time. After parting with Haru, she had been on her own, following the kidnapper's instructions by herself. Almost right after the mall opened, she walked in. For the criminal's demands, she spent 6,000 yen on a cheap attaché case. The ransom, worth virtually everything the entire family owns, was already in that briefcase. Tsubaki dialed on the cell phone Haru gave her. It was strong in both battery life and signal.
もしもし。
The call connected quickly. The kidnapper's captivating voice circled around her ear.
優等生だな、椿も。急いでケースを用意した。デパートの開店は11時だからな。
She had no idea what he was talking about. She had no choice but to rush with her brother's life on the line.
今後迅速な行動を期待する。
Tsubaki could only give a faint response.
今はセントラル街だ。
はい。
そのまま歩いてオフィス街に来てもらおう。山王物産の本社ビルが見える広い公園があるのはわかる。
公園のどこに行けばいいんでしょうか。
園内には大きな掲示板がある。そのそばで落ちよう。
わかりました。
The call was suddenly disconnected. Tsubaki stopped and looked around, searching for Haru. However, sweeping her gaze through the bustling sea of people, she couldn't spot the attention-grabbing hair. She should be following me right now. Tsubaki gripped her briefcase, cutting through the chaotic streets. 30 minutes at the very most. 20 minutes should be enough time to reach the park from the department store on foot, even for a girl. Even though I told Tsubaki that we would meet, I have no intentions of fulfilling that promise. I need to confirm one thing before I take the ransom. Whether or not the delivery person is truly obedient to the kidnapper. In other words, I need to determine whether or not she has the sense of responsibility and the stamina required for a successful exchange. And most importantly, whether or not she's contacted the police. So, 30 minutes. My gaze followed the minute hand on my watch. I believe that if she's still not here within 30 minutes, then without a doubt the police will be coming with her. If Tsubaki's family has ignored my warnings and called the police, There might be over 100 officers watching Tsubaki deliver the ransom. In order to capture me, countless police officers would have already begun setting an inescapable net at the park. However, no matter how quickly the task force responds, doing so would still take a considerable amount of time. After all, the police would have to move everyone from Central Boulevard to this park. They wouldn't allow Tsubaki to proceed until they finished organizing their members. That's why I'm being so sensitive to time. If I don't spot Tsubaki within 30 minutes, I have no choice but to cancel the exchange. Visibility in the park is excellent. If there are undercover cops about, I might be able to spot them. However, I don't have the confidence to say that I could do so with absolute certainty. For instance, if you were to ask me who stands out the most, there are two middle-aged couples, a man walking a dog, a man who looks like he's on his way to the office, and an old man helping a pregnant woman. There are simply too many suspects. Thus, the least I should do is remember the faces of everyone here. That way, if a person with a familiar face shows up as I ordered Tsubaki around, I can determine with high confidence that the person is with the police. I sat on a bench, scanning the area, searching for signs of law enforcement. I saw Tsubaki. She was sprinting to the billboard with all her strength. A girl wearing a casual clothes and carrying an attaché case is very conspicuous. If a person with an overactive imagination saw Tsubaki right now, they might think that she looks like she's running to deliver a ransom. I checked the time. It's been less than 15 minutes since the last contact. Well then, it's about time to issue the next order. However, I need to act under the assumption that there are already undercover police searching the park. If that is indeed the case, then I definitely can't call her immediately. The moment Tsubaki picks up, they'll be searching the park frantically for anyone talking on a phone. Before leaving, I took a second to look at Tsubaki in the distance. Even from afar, I could see she was nervous. She waited for almost an hour. Tsubaki was nearly suffocating from the anxiety. Even though she came to the appointed place, not a single person who seemed like the kidnapper has shown up. The only people who have come to talk to her are flirtatious young men, not knowing anything about the situation. Her cell phone suddenly rang. The kidnapper is calling.
Hi, ちゃんといますよ.
She yelled into the phone. The kidnapper groaned in discontent.
少し騒がしいぞ、椿。大声を出すな。周りの人間に不審に思われる。ただでさえアタッシュケースを手に持った格好というのは、お前のような少女には不釣り合いなのか。
すみません。
The kidnapper's instructions are what made her stand out so badly, but she kept this thought to herself out of fear.
それでこのケースはどうすればいいんでしょうか。
大事に持っておけ。予定変更だ。受け渡し場所を変更する。
Tsubaki was lost. She searched for Haru without thinking, but she couldn't even find a thread of her being.
セントラル街の駅に行け。改札の近くにロッカールームがある。使用禁止の紙が貼られたコインロッカーを探す。
待ってください。今書き留めます。
Lodging the cell between her head and shoulders, she used her free hand to open her diary.
ロッカーの中に身代金の詰まったケースを入れて鍵をしろ。
使用禁止じゃないんですか？
安心しろ。実はちゃんと使える。
The warning was probably prepared by him beforehand. Tsubaki waited for her next instructions.
ロッカーの鍵をしっかりとかけたら、次にその鍵を持って電車に。行き先は終点の桜扇町だ。
桜扇町。
That's the final stop of the line, in the next prefecture. From Central Boulevard, the trip will take 2 hours. Just what is he planning to have me do, calling me out that far?
向こうの駅に着いたら改札を出たあたりで待て。
また連絡をもらえるんですか？
いいよ。お前から連絡してこい。いざ。
わかりました。次こそ会えるんですよね。
椿がいい子にしていたらな。
He used a frivolous tone. He's probably just messing with her. Tsubaki's unreleased emotions are rising and crashing inside her chest, waiting to explode at the lightest touch.
あなたの言うことは守ります。だから絶対に弟を返してください。
Flames of anger began to swell within the girl. Yet even with Tsubaki in this state, the kidnapper spoke to her in a mocking tone. What will you do if I don't? Okay.
許さない。
She herself was surprised at the strength and harshness in her words. An unbearable silence followed. Terror attacked her. She may have angered the kidnapper. An inappropriate provocation may bring disaster upon Hiroaki. If that really happened, how could she possibly endure the knowledge that she was responsible? The criminal spoke quietly.
私がお前を人間にしてやる。
Huh? His words only confused her. Just as she was about to ask, the connection was cut. Into a human? Does that have some kind of philosophical meaning? She's never been good at understanding hidden meanings. And besides, it's natural for her not to understand the ideas of an evildoer, of a man who kidnapped a child. She collected her feelings and walked to the station. As she was waiting for the light to change, someone spoke out to her.
椿、そのまま聞け。
Tsubaki had no idea when she had appeared, but Haru was standing by her side. She spoke to Tsubaki, keeping her eyes straight ahead rather than looking at her.
お前は犯人の指示をメモに取っているな。
日記に。
じゃあそのページだけ破って歩きながらそれとなく捨ててくれ。
分かったよ。
The light turned green. People began to surge forward. When she got to the other end of the crosswalk, Tsubaki looked back behind her. Haru was already nowhere to be seen. Even now, Tsubaki had a sense of resistance to littering. But when she realized Haru would pick it up immediately, she felt a little better about it. Okay. Don't litter. 2 hours and 10 minutes have passed. Jag tror vi tar och pausar det. Det här kommer nog hålla på väldigt länge. Så vi tar och pausar här. Jag ska springa och duscha, sen ska jag fortsätta tror jag. Vi får se kanske. Annars fortsätter jag imorgon. Men det här kommer nog hålla på väldigt länge, så jag tror vi tar och avslutar här. Så jag får tacka så mycket för att ni har tittat på det här avsnittet utav Senjou no Maou. Så får ni ha det bra tills vi hörs nästa gång. Tills dess, tack så mycket för att ni har kollat. Vi hörs. Hej då!